Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
The clinking of silverware against plates was the only thing breaking the silence between Patrick and Jennifer. The soft lighting of the restaurant made the place feel welcoming, but inside Patrick, something felt different. He noticed Jennifer was restless. Her eyes avoided his, her breathing was slightly faster, and she was twisting her hair more than usual. Small signs that might have gone unnoticed at another time, but on that night, each little detail seemed heavier somehow. He didn't ask anything. He didn't want to push her. After 9 years together, he knew Jennifer well enough to understand she'd only talk when she was ready. So he kept eating, waiting for her to break the silence first. And then it happened. "I need some space." The sentence was short, but it hit him like a bolt of lightning. Space? Jennifer's words hung in the air, like they didn't make sense. He blinked a few times, wondering if he'd heard right. She wasn't asking for a break. She wasn't saying she wanted to end things. It was something else. A request for distance, with no apparent reason or explanation. An abstract concept that didn't fit the dynamic of their marriage. Patrick slowly set down his fork. His appetite vanished the moment he heard those words. His heart raced and a cold sensation ran down his spine. He expected her to continue, to add context, to say something that would help him understand. But Jennifer just looked away and took a long sip of her wine. Patrick forced a smile, trying to seem calm. Space? What exactly does that mean? Jennifer placed her glass on the table carefully. She didn't look angry. She didn't look sad. She just looked distant. "I don't know. I just need to breathe a little. To feel like myself." Those words cut like little knives. What did she mean, to feel like herself? Had she lost herself in their marriage somehow? Patrick thought about everything they'd been through together, from tough times in college to celebrating their achievements. He'd always given Jennifer the freedom to be who she was. He'd always encouraged her projects, never acting like a controlling husband. So why did she need space now? At that moment, Patrick noticed something even stranger. She wasn't asking for a discussion. She didn't seem interested in talking it out or hearing his side. It felt more like a decision she'd already made, and she was just letting him know what would happen from now on. There was a Patrick before she said those words and a Patrick after. The old Patrick might have tried to argue. He might have asked what he did wrong, tried to fix his mistakes, shown Jennifer they could solve it together. But the Patrick he was now felt a strange calm wash over him. He took a deep breath and gave a slight nod. "All right." Jennifer's eyes went wide for a moment. She clearly wasn't expecting that answer. Her reaction was subtle, but Patrick noticed. Maybe she was ready to deal with resistance, to counter his justifications, to hear him plead for an explanation. But she wasn't prepared for such a simple acceptance. "All right," she repeated, like she couldn't believe it. Patrick took a sip of his water and set the glass down calmly. "Yes. If that's what you want, then all right." Jennifer looked at him for a few seconds, as if trying to figure out if he was serious. And he was. He realized something in that instant. If the woman he'd loved for almost a decade felt she needed space, it wasn't his place to beg her to stay. Real love wasn't a leash. The waiter came over, breaking the tense mood. "Can I get you anything else?" Patrick looked at Jennifer. She was still holding her fork in midair, like she couldn't decide whether to keep eating or answer. He took out his wallet, removed his card, and handed it to the waiter. "Just the check." The waiter nodded and left. Jennifer watched him closely, expecting some kind of emotional outburst that never came. The silence between them was different now. It wasn't the comfortable silence of a couple used to each other's presence. It was the silence of uncertainty. Jennifer clearly hadn't expected this reaction. And for the first time that night, Patrick felt he was in control of the situation. Not because he was manipulating or playing games, but because, in that moment, he realized he could choose not to chase her. He looked at Jennifer and gave a faint smile. Not a happy smile, but the smile of someone who got the message. "Shall we?" he asked, already standing up. Jennifer took a moment to respond, but slowly nodded. They left the restaurant together, but something had changed. Nothing would ever be the same. In the days that followed, the house felt different. Not because anything had changed physically, the furniture was in the same place, the morning coffee aroma still lingered, and the same routines continued. But the feeling was off. There was an emptiness. Jennifer started getting up earlier than usual and leaving without saying much. Sometimes she mentioned meeting some friends, other times she said she'd stay late at work. But generally, her explanations were short, like she was trying to avoid giving Patrick a chance to ask more. He didn't ask, though. At first, Jennifer seemed comfortable with the new dynamic. She was free, with no demands on her, with no need to justify herself. If she wanted to go out for dinner, she did. If she wanted to spend the night on her phone, exchanging only a handful of words with Patrick, she did that. But over time, something began to change. Patrick's absence wasn't just physical. He stopped really being there. Before, when Jennifer got home from work, he'd ask about her day, mention something he was reading, try to spark some conversation between them. Now, he just nodded at her short answers and went back to whatever he was doing. If Jennifer decided to go out at night, he'd simply watch her grab her purse and leave without a word. If she stayed up late on her phone, he wouldn't peek over her shoulder or seem curious. He just went on with his life as if he were alone there. At first, Jennifer found it kind of freeing. This was what she wanted, right? Space. But slowly, that space started feeling way too big. One night, while getting ready to go out, she looked in the mirror and saw Patrick on the couch behind her. He was reading a book, relaxed, like nothing in the world could bother him. Before, he would have asked where she was headed. Not in a controlling way, but because he cared. This time, he didn't even look up. Jennifer picked up her lipstick and applied it slowly, watching his expression. She still expected some reaction. But he turned the page in his book and kept reading, showing no interest at all. She paused before leaving. Something felt wrong. Her first outings with friends had been exciting. That sense of freedom was addictive. But as the days went by, Jennifer started to notice her laughter at the bars felt forced, that the novelty was wearing off. When she went out with her married friends, they talked about their husbands, sometimes complaining, sometimes laughing, sometimes sharing funny stories. But when someone asked about Patrick, Jennifer realized she didn't have much to say. Or rather, she did, but she didn't want to admit it. Patrick wasn't a clingy man. He never had been. But now, he was completely distant. One morning, Jennifer woke up and saw the empty spot next to her in bed. It wasn't unusual for Patrick to go for an early run, but something about it bothered her this time. She got up, and for the first time in a long while, felt a twinge of anxiety. She checked her phone. No messages from him. She went to the kitchen and found the coffee maker off. Before, Patrick always left fresh coffee for her. Little gestures, small habits. But this time, nothing. Jennifer felt a pang in her chest. She opened Instagram and started scrolling absent-mindedly. Suddenly, she stopped. There was a photo of Patrick. It was from the previous night. He was at a bar with some friends. Smiling. He looked happy. Jennifer frowned. Since when did Patrick go out to bars? The picture was posted by one of his friends, someone she barely knew. But what really bothered her was the comment from a woman, "Great to see you smiling again, Patrick." Jennifer felt a flash of anger. Smiling again? Since when had he stopped smiling? And who was this woman to even notice? She locked her phone and tried to focus on something else. But for the first time, she felt something slipping through her fingers. Later that afternoon, when Patrick got home, she was waiting for him in the kitchen. "Where were you?" she asked casually, trying to hide her agitation. Patrick looked at her and gave a small smile. "I went out with some coworkers." Jennifer waited for him to say more. But Patrick just got a glass of water and continued his routine, like nothing had happened. That's when Jennifer realized. She had asked for space. And now, Patrick was really giving it to her. Patrick was sitting on the couch, relaxed, scrolling aimlessly on his phone. Night was falling, and Jennifer still hadn't come home. But unlike before, he wasn't waiting. He didn't look at the clock every 10 minutes, he didn't send texts asking where she was, and he definitely didn't feel that old restlessness he once did. She asked for space. He gave it to her. And now, he was living his own life, too. It was almost midnight when the clock on the wall chimed and the door finally opened. Jennifer walked in, kicking off her heels and tossing her purse on the table. Her perfume filled the room, mixed with the scent of alcohol and something Patrick couldn't identify. She looked different. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup slightly smeared. Patrick glanced at her for a second and then went back to his phone. Jennifer paused, like she was waiting for a comment from him. But he didn't say anything. She went straight to the bedroom, and Patrick stayed there on the couch. The silence between them was no longer uncomfortable. It was final. A few minutes later, the sound of the shower filled the apartment. Then something unexpected happened. Jennifer's phone, lying on the table in the living room, lit up. Patrick wasn't in the habit of checking her phone. He never had been. But by reflex, his eyes flicked to the screen. There was just one message. "It was amazing being with you today. Can't wait to do it again." Face blowing a kiss, Mark. Patrick's heart didn't race. His breathing didn't hitch. In fact, he didn't feel anything at all. He just confirmed what he already knew. He stood there for a few seconds, staring at that message. A part of him wondered if he should be angry, if he should confront her, yell, demand explanations. But the truth was, he'd accepted this reality long before that message appeared. Jennifer hadn't really been part of his life for months. He picked up the phone, without unlocking it, and slowly turned it face down. Then he took a deep breath, stood up, and walked out to the balcony. The cool night air hit his face, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a strange sense of peace. There would be no confrontation. There would be no yelling. There would only be an ending. The next morning, Patrick woke up before his alarm. The sun wasn't fully up yet, but he was already sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. The sound of the shower told him Jennifer was awake, following her routine like nothing had happened the night before. But everything had happened. Patrick said nothing. He didn't knock on the door, didn't demand answers, didn't yell that he knew about her cheating. Because, deep down, he didn't need answers anymore. He had all the proof he needed, clear as the morning light outside. He took a deep breath and stood up. There was a strange calm inside him. A clarity he hadn't felt in months. He looked at the closet, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small suitcase. He wouldn't need much. Just some clothes, his documents, enough to leave that house. While folding his shirts, he heard the bathroom door open. Jennifer came out in a robe, her hair still dripping. She froze when she saw him there, packing. "What are you doing?" she asked, frowning. Patrick kept folding a shirt, not rushing. "I'm packing." Jennifer took a step closer, still not fully grasping what he meant. "Are you going on a trip?" He paused this time. He looked up and met her eyes for a long moment. There was no anger. No resentment. Just a decision. I'm leaving. She blinked a few times, like she was trying to process it. Silence fell between them, thick and heavy. She looked like she wanted to say something, but hesitated. And Patrick knew, right then, that she understood. Of course she knew. She knew he'd seen the message. She knew he'd realized she'd been absent, really absent, for months. She knew that the space she'd asked for was never an innocent request, but an excuse to make room for someone else. Even so, she tried to pretend this was out of nowhere. Patrick, what happened? He gave her a sad smile, one that said he'd already seen the truth and couldn't pretend otherwise anymore. You know what happened. Jennifer pulled her robe tighter, looking away. A reflex. Guilt in action. Can we talk about it? She began, but her voice was weak, with no confidence. Patrick closed the suitcase. There's nothing left to talk about. Jennifer rubbed her hand over her face, clearly nervous now. She wanted him to fight. She wanted him to question her, to show jealousy, to argue. Because that would mean there was still something left between them. But his calm was unbearable. It meant he'd given up on her. That's it? You're just leaving? Patrick took a deep breath and looked around. The apartment that had once been their home now felt like just a place he slept in. Nothing here held him anymore. He walked to the door and set the suitcase down beside it. Then he turned to Jennifer one last time. You asked for space. Now you have all the space in the world. Jennifer opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, she seemed truly at a loss. Patrick didn't wait. He picked up his suitcase, opened the door, and left. The cool morning air hit his face as he walked down the stairs. With each step, he felt lighter, like he was freeing himself from an invisible weight he'd carried for too long. He got into his car, shut the door, and sat there for a moment, breathing deeply. He looked in the rearview mirror at the apartment window up above. Jennifer was still up there, probably standing in the middle of the living room, wondering how it all came to this. But Patrick didn't need to wonder anymore. He turned the key and drove away without looking back. Time went by. The divorce went through without big fights, no endless arguments, no attempts at reconciliation. Jennifer didn't even try to contest it. Maybe, deep down, she understood there was no going back, that the door closed the moment Patrick walked out of their apartment for the last time. That was that. Patrick's life started fresh. He moved into a new apartment, smaller, simpler, but it had something he hadn't felt in a long time, lightness. The absence of Jennifer didn't hurt. In fact, it was a relief. He realized that for a long time, he'd been in a relationship where only he was trying, only he was making the effort to keep things going. Now, he no longer had to fight for something that had died long ago. In the first few months, he rediscovered pleasures he'd forgotten. He started going out with friends again, spent more time on work, got back into sports. But most of all, he rediscovered himself. It felt strange at first. Not because he missed Jennifer, he didn't. But because for the first time in years, he was living for himself. He didn't have to please anyone. He didn't have to watch his words or his steps. He was just living. Until one day, the past showed up again. It was just an ordinary Saturday. Patrick was at the supermarket, calmly pushing his cart, picking out some fruit. Life went on quietly, and he hadn't thought about Jennifer in a while. But when he turned a corner, there she was. Jennifer. She looked different. Less put together than she used to be, missing that confident glow she once had. There was something in her eyes, something Patrick hadn't seen in years. She spotted him at almost the same moment and froze for a second. Then she took a breath and forced a smile. Patrick, he stopped by his cart and just looked at her. He didn't feel any pain. No resentment. Just indifference. Hey, Jennifer. She took a hesitant step, holding the strap of her purse as if she needed an excuse to keep her hands occupied. How are you? Patrick gave a slight smile. I'm good. How about you? Jennifer looked away for a second before replying. I'm hanging in there. The conversation hung in the air, awkward, weighed down by everything that was never said. Patrick didn't ask anything. Because he didn't need to. Jennifer opened her mouth, hesitated, but then finally let out what she really wanted to say, I'm sorry. He stayed silent for a moment. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because he realized this was the first time in so long that Jennifer seemed genuine. She expected him to say something. Maybe, I'm sorry too. Maybe, we could try again. But no. He just took a deep breath, looked her in the eyes, and answered, I've already forgiven you. Jennifer blinked a few times, surprised. But before she could say anything else, Patrick gave her a small smile and added, but that doesn't mean we can go back. He saw in her eyes that this was exactly what she'd feared the most. Because now, Jennifer understood. She had lost him. For good. And the irony of life was that, by the time she realized what she'd had, it was too late. Patrick just pushed his cart forward and kept walking. He didn't look back. He felt no regret. He felt nothing. He was free. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.